Idaho, Utah, Colorado. Bundy's additional murders went unnoticed until he confessed to them shortly before his execution. On September 2, he raped and strangled a still unidentified hitchhiker in Idaho. He either dumped the body in a nearby river or left it and returned the next day to photograph and dismember his victim. On October 2, he killed 16-year-old Nancy Wilcox in Holiday, a suburb of Salt Lake City. According to Bundy, he tried to limit his pathological desires by only raping his victims, but not killing them. He killed Wilcox by accident when he tried to silence her. He buried Wilcox in Capitol Reef Park, but her remains were never found. On the evening of October 18, Melissa Smith, the 17-year-old daughter of a local police chief, went missing in the small Mormon town of Midvale, another suburb of Salt Lake City, while returning home. Melissa Smith had gone to a restaurant half a kilometer from her home to talk to a friend who worked there, who had been dumped by her boyfriend. After the conversation, she went home around 10 p.m. 9 days later. Her naked body was found in Summit Park, in the Wasatch Mountains, 30 kilometers from Salt Lake City. An autopsy showed that she had been alive for 7 days after her disappearance. On the night of October 31, 17-year-old Laura Ann disappeared 35 kilometers from Lehi on her way from a cafe. Her body was discovered by tourists 7 days later, on Thanksgiving, in American Fork Canyon, located in the Winter Wasatch Cache National Forest. Both women had been brutally beaten, raped, including anally, and strangled with nylon stockings. Several years later, Bundy described the rituals he performed on the already dead girls. He washed their hair with shampoo and applied makeup. In Murray, a suburb of Salt Lake City, 18-year-old Carol Duranch barely escaped Bundy. On the evening of November 8, Duranch drove her car to the Fashion Place Mall, about a kilometer from the pizzeria where Melissa Smith was last seen. Walking through the mall, Carol stopped at a bookstore window to look at books. There, at about 7:30 p.m., Bundy approached her, introduced himself as Officer Roseland, and said that someone had tried to break into her car. Bundy asked her to go with him to the police station to file a report. It was already dark outside when Bundy brought the girl to his car. She was very surprised that the police officer did not drive a police car, but a battered Volkswagen Beetle. When asked to show her badge, Bundy only twirled his wallet in front of Duranch's face. This was strange and suspicious, but the girl admitted the thought that in front of her was an undercover officer and got into the car. Bundy suddenly took off and drove his Volkswagen, but not toward the police station, but somewhere to the side. When he turned onto a street and braked sharply, the girl immediately opened the door and rushed out of the car, but Bundy managed to catch her by the hand, pulled her back into the car and snapped the handcuff bracelet on her right hand. The girl began to fight desperately, hitting him, scratching, biting. In the heat of the fight, Bundy fastened the second bracelet on her right hand. Then Carol abruptly pushed Bundy away and jumped out of the car. Bundy rushed after her, holding his crowbar in his hand. He grabbed her, pressed her to the hood of the car, trying to hit her on the head. However, the girl desperately fought back, intercepting his hand with the crowbar. The fierce struggle ended with Carol kicking Bundy in the groin with all her might, breaking free and rushing towards the approaching car. That same evening, at about 10 p.m., 17-year-old Deborah Kent, a student at Viewmont High School in Bountiful, a 20-minute drive from Murray, went missing. She disappeared during a school theater production. During intermission, Deborah decided to pick up her younger brother from the skate park. She went to the parking lot near the school to her car and disappeared. Later, police officers, searching the parking lot, found the key to Carol Duranch's handcuffs. During the play, Bundy was seen by students and an acting teacher, 24-year-old Raylan Shepard. According to Shepard, before the start of the play, an unknown man approached her in the school lobby and asked her to help him find his car in the parking lot. She apologized, said that she was busy, and went about her business. During the break in the performance, this man came up to her again and, staring at her chest, began to say that he had not taken his eyes off her. She was very attractive to and liked her, especially her long black hair, and that she should go with him right away to help find his car. Shepard turned away in disgust and walked away. In November, Elizabeth, reading about young women disappearing in towns near Salt Lake City, called the police again. Detective Hergesheimer questioned her at length. After this, suspicions about Bundy grew, but the Lake Sammamish witnesses, whom the police considered the most reliable, did not identify him from a photo. In December, Klopfer contacted the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office and repeated her suspicions. Bundy was added to the list of suspects, but nothing seriously connected him to the Utah murders. In January 1975, he returned to Seattle after taking exams and spent a week with Klopfer. She did not tell Ted that she had reported him to the police 3 times and planned to visit him in Salt Lake City in August. In 1975, he moved his crime spree east to Colorado. On January 12, 23-year-old nurse Karen Campbell mysteriously disappeared from the Snowmass Village Resort in Colorado. After going for a minute from the hotel lobby where she was sitting with her fiancé to her room to get a magazine, she vanished. She was last seen exiting the elevator on her floor. A month later, her naked body was accidentally discovered in a snowdrift in an abandoned area outside the resort. She had been hit on the head with a blunt object and strangled. Her body was covered in cuts. On March 15, Julie Cunningham, a ski instructor, disappeared while walking back to her apartment in Vail, 160 kilometers from Snowmass Village. Bundy later told Colorado investigators that he approached her on crutches and asked her to help him carry his ski boots to his car, where he knocked her out and handcuffed her before raping and strangling her in a remote area near Rifle, 90 miles, 140 kilometers, from Vail. He returned to the crime scene several weeks later to look at Julie's remains. Denise Oliverson, 25, went missing April 6 near the Utah-Colorado border in Grand Junction while riding her bike to her parents' home. Her bike and sandals were found under a freeway overpass. On May 6, Bundy lured 12-year-old Lynette Culver into his car as she was walking home from school in Pocatello, Idaho. He took her to a motel, where he raped her and drowned her in a bathtub, then raped her again after she was dead. He later dumped the body in the Snake River. In May, 3 of Bundy's DES colleagues, including Carolyn Boone, stayed with him for a week in Salt Lake City. In June, Bundy visited Klopfer in Seattle for a week, and they decided to get married for Christmas. Bundy did not tell her that he was still in a relationship with Boone, or about his affair with a Utah law student known as Kim Andrews or Sharonauer. On June 27, 15-year-old Susan Curtis of Bountiful, Utah, and 2 friends rode their bicycles to the Brigham Young University campus for a youth conference. That evening, after a formal dinner in the Student Center banquet hall, Susan walked 5 minutes to her dormitory and disappeared. She was never seen again. The abduction and murder of Curtis was Bundy's final confession, recorded minutes before his execution. The bodies of Wilcox, Kent, Cunningham, Culver, Curtis and Oliverson were never found.